Hello, investors. It's Don Vandenbord, Chief Investment Officer with Revere Asset Management. Today is Tuesday, May 27th, 5:05 p.m. Eastern Time, coming to you from St. Augustine Beach, Florida, with the Revere Roundup Daily Market Insight video. State of the market, we're in an uptrend since the back-to-back O'Neill follow-through days on April 22nd and 23rd. Check the trend gauge over here. We've got a green arrow for market leaders. We've also got green arrows for our indexes short-term trend, all above the 21-day moving average, and our medium-term trend, all above the 50-day moving average. Mixed bag relative to the long-term trend on the 200-day moving average. So we got the neutral arrow there. So what happened today over the weekend? Trump delayed after threatening 50% EU tariffs on Friday. He had a conversation with Ursula von der Leyen or something like that, her name is. They agreed to delay EU tariffs until early July. That sparked a gap up in the futures overnight, Sunday into Monday. Market was closed Monday, though, but the futures held that gain Monday night into Tuesday and added to it during the market regular hours today. So gap up, trend up. Here's for bears. Bulls love it. That's the bottom line on the day. Here are the numbers. Our 21 over 21 list, we excluded CoreWeave because it was up 20.7%, but the average of the other 20, 1.84%, 16 up, 2 neutral, 3 down. The big eight, led by Tesla, up 6.9%, up an average of 3.1%. The RG8 also nicely up. This is our 8 growth ETF composite that we put together, helps us keep track of the broad trend in growth land, up 2.4%. S&P 500 gapped up 1.1, closed up 2.05. A very nice job by the bulls on the S&P. Equal weight down slightly compared to that, but still up 1.86%. NASDAQ 100 up 2.35. Equal weight NASDAQ up a little shy of 2%. Also nice gains for the Dow, mid caps and small caps. We'll take a look at those charts in a minute. Global 60/40 up 1.18%. Our flagship GROTECTION portfolio up 1.9%. TurboTection up 2.1%. Reminder, YouTube, if you're watching us there, please like and subscribe. It helps our content get get picked up by the algorithms for anybody that's looking for stock market news. We'd appreciate it if you would like and subscribe. Thank you so much. So let's get to the charts. We'll start off with the S&P 500. And I want to note on the tail of the tape last week on Thursday, last time I did the video, we noted that all of the indexes, stochastic was turning down from overbought, crossing down through that 80 level, which is overbought. It doesn't mean it's necessarily going to come all the way down to oversold. In fact, during most bullish uptrends, you get a couple of false moves back below oversold just into the broad 20 to 80 range. But ideally, you want to get a hook right back up shortly after that. And that's what we got today. Not quite across, but if the trend sticks tomorrow, the gray line, which is the stochastic, will cross up through the moving average line. That's the thicker blue line. And this is consistent across all the major indexes. So I'll hide that so we can see the charts a little bit better. You can see the S&P 500 here. Gap up. This was on the China tariff reset, 6 days up. 4-day pullback, bounced right at the 200-day moving average, which was right above the 21-day. And then the gap up this morning, taking us back above the 8-day moving average. That's the thin purple line, and closing at the highs of the day. Bulls couldn't have asked for much more. Let's go to the 5-minute chart here. You can see the gap up, put in the low within the first 5 minutes, 4.5-hour trend up to 59.24. A little bit of a fade slash base for the next 2 hours, and run near the highs of the day over the last 10 minutes. Just a beautiful thing to see. So really what we're looking at here is we're in an 11-day range since this gap up here. There's the top, there's the bottom. So bulls looking to test this top of the range, and right above there is the 6,000 level. So basically an 11-day consolidation, 1 day up with the big move off of the 200-day moving average on the NASDAQ 100. Sorry, on the S&P 500. Let's go to the equal weight. Same thing, undercut and reclaim the 21-day, but an undercut of the 200-day last week, reclaiming it today. Good stuff there, up 1.86% on the equal weight S&P. Relative strength on the equal weight continues to lag because the NASDAQ 100 continues to lead on a relative basis. 11-day trend here as well, reclaiming after a 1 day below the 8-day moving average, reclaiming it today, taking it up near the top of this 11-day range. And above there is 525-ish. So that is a level we're taking a look at for resistance that we want to clear before an attempt at 540.81, which is all-time highs on the NASDAQ 100. Let's quickly look at the equal weight NASDAQ 100, looking good there as well, reclaiming the 8-day moving average, staying above the 21 and the 200 on its pullback. Dow Jones Industrial Average, weakest of the big cap indexes because it's more value weighted, but moving right up into the 200-day moving average today after an undercut and reclaim of the 21 on Friday. Let's go to mid caps now. Lost the 200-day moving average last week, trying to get back to that level really at mid-range, but regaining the 8-day moving average, undercut and reclaim of the 21 on Friday. And finally, the Russell 2000, the weakest of the 6 indexes that we focused on, but still reclaiming the 8-day moving average today. So good stuff there. We want to make a run at that 2100 level and get back in the good graces, but still relative to the 200-day moving average, quite a way to go, still 4% until we touch that level. So those are the major indexes. Let's go to inter-asset correlation. We got the VIX breaking back below 20. Good stuff there, down 7.8% on the day. How about the US dollar? Dollar bouncing after undercutting this range that it had been trading in. Let me draw some lines here. Uh, false breakdown. That's not a good line. False breakdown of this range a couple of weeks ago, then a false break out of that range. Back into the range and an undercut during the day today on the dollar, still into that range. False break down, false break up. A lot of the dollar's playing a lot of ping pong. It's impacting precious metals, not so much the indexes. And speaking of precious metals, here's GLD. Had a nice gap up on dollar weakness last week, gap down today on dollar strength. There's GLD, still above the 21-day moving average, but down 1.7% on the day. One of the few sectors that lagged. Actually acting as a decent hedge for smoothing equity curves as silver and gold and silver stocks are moving opposite of what the NASDAQ 100 is moving. GDX down 1.5% today. Normal pullback still above the 21-day moving average. Bitcoin attempted breakout last week, just pulling back to the pivot here in this big cup base. Closed up 1.1% today after being down late last week. Nice setup there for a move higher. All right, let's go to bonds. Broad bond index, BND. Bond prices up. That's good because that means yields are down. Here's TLT, the long bond, also up. So the 30-year yield dropping there, looking like a false breakout on the yield from last week. And TNX pulling back right to the 21-day moving average. That's our inter-asset correlation. Let's hit the tail of the tape now. I adjusted the stochastics. Neutral, we're toward overbought, but not at overbought. So all 6 considered neutral. You want to see the cross back up through the moving average, as I highlighted on the S&P 500. RG8, 6 neutral. ARK and FFTY staying in overbought range on the RG8. NASI That's the McClellan Summation Index. It hooked down last week, but still is in overbought territory. Dollar sideways, yields up. Big move up in the percent versus 5 day. This got stretched to the downside on Friday, which is just a setup for a slingshot back up higher. That's what we got today. We closed under 10 on Friday, all the way up to 77 today. This is a percent of S&P stocks relative to their 5 day moving average. I mentioned the news. Trump delays the EU tariffs. Keys coming into today, same keys that we've been focusing on. That's the 200-day moving average on the S&P, and then this range 5,800 to 6,000. But for the Qs, 200-day moving average and the 500 to 525 range. So we remain trapped inside the range, but above the 200-day moving average. Day count up one, and the 8 day moving average was reclaimed. So that went from down three to up one, 23 days above the 21-day moving average on the S&P 500. And our short-term expectations remain positive as long as we stay above the 21 on the S&P and the NASDAQ. As far as, let me point out, the S&P ATR continues to decline down to 1.37% on average over the last 21 days. That's good stuff. You would ideally want to see this get under a 1. Sectors, all 11 spider sectors up. Semiconductors also up strongly to the downside. Emerging markets, crude oil, and gold and silver stocks. GROTECTION, no portfolio changes, just some assimilation for new accounts. Volatility adjusted beta 1.37 for GROTECTION, 5.14% balance at risk. That is, if all of our stops would get hit tomorrow, the account would be down 5.14%. And if they little by little get hit over the next week or two, that's our downside right now. This adjusts a little bit every day as we raise stops, put on new positions, but for now, 5.14%. TurboTection, 3 new holdings started QLD, Rocket Lab, and TEM. That jacked the beta up to 1.76% for Turbo and 5.87% Open Heat. Bottom line on the day, tears for bears. EU tariff delay sparked gap up, trend up day. Bears were after that sell-off last week, hoping. That's all they're doing. That's all that they have at this point is hope. Of course, I don't want to jinx it by saying that, but that's where we are. Bulls have been firmly in control since this multi-week move off of the bottom. All right. Let's now go to the 21 over 21 list. Just one cut from last week, and that was CRS. I talked about this. We booked our profits on this. It was up nicely today, 3.57%. Sold it last week on the break below the 8 day moving average. This is one that we were looking. Liquidity issues here is part of the problem. We're $270 million assets under management. We can't hold on to thinly traded positions. This trade's a bit thin. But we booked the gains on this last week. So it's hit pivot plus 20%. So we're going to take it off the leaders list, and I'll mention its replacement when we get to there. But let's start off with what we own in GROTECTION on the 21 over 21. They all have a green flag as we own them, and that will be the first 11 names that we go through. Netflix clearing that 1,200 level today. Palantir broke this downtrend line with a nice gap above it, but then showed some weakness intraday, breaking back below the 8 day moving average. Let's go to a 5-minute chart here. So there's your break. Some selling occurred here on some big volume midday. Then it started to bounce later in the day. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. Setting up for higher prices right near the pivot level. 2 week sideways is okay with me on something that has had a nice move up, then formed a base, had a nice reaction above this 100 level, a pullback on earnings after moving up from 100 to 125 in less than 2 weeks. Kind of working off that now, going sideways, looks good. Looking to add to this on higher, considered it today, but then it started to pull back. So just left the position as is. GE Vernova just continues to be a champ, riding the 8-day moving average higher. Uber, 4-day pullback, regained the 8-day moving average today. Hood, higher highs, nothing wrong with that. Continues to ride the 8 EMA higher. Tesla, just below average volume today, but broke this little week and a half consolidation that it was in. Nice move today, up 6.94% on the day. HIMS ran into this is something we don't like to see. So there was news of competition for HIMS signed a deal with NVO to provide their weight loss meds. They were doing their own compounding when there was a shortage, but there's no shortage anymore. There were some lawsuits. They signed a deal with NVO, but then last week NVO signed some deals with some other competitors of HIMS for the drugs, and the market sold off hard, held the 21-day moving average. When we see a bounce of the 21, the next thing we want to see is a reclaim of the 8-day moving average. What we don't want to see is a rejection at the declining 8-day moving average, but that is what we saw here. That just reinforces the short-term weakness on HIMS. We're down to a very small position on this as we took some profits on the way up, reloaded after it stopped being as extended as it was, got stopped on that reload, and now keeping an eye for this pinch that's going on between the declining 8 and the rising 21. Breaks above there, we'll consider adding to it. Breaks below there, we'll close out the position. Rose, some weakness last week after a nice move up on its earnings report, but reclaiming the 8-day moving average. Say, this is exactly what I'm saying, what I want to see when you come below the 8 and challenge the 21. Undercut and reclaim of the 21, regain the 8 EMA after that. That's what we actually want to see HIMS do. Spotify, higher high today, but then squatted, still above the 8-day moving average after bouncing off the 21-day last week. NVIDIA, all eyes on its earnings tomorrow after the close, forming a nice little tight 2-week consolidation here. And it's up from 100 to 135-ish. Pretty big move here over the prior 3 weeks, then putting in this 2-week flag. This looks nice. It looks like it could go higher. It hasn't had a positive reaction on its last few earnings reports just because it got over-owned. You can see it coming down here after earnings, failed breakout after earnings, sell-off after earnings. As soon as people stop talking about it, which the chatter has gone way down on NVIDIA now, but all it is sitting in this nice 43% 3+ month base, waiting for its reaction to earnings. And it's relatively cheap with a 44 forward PE and 46% earnings growth for fiscal 2026, and then 29% next year. So huge growth. A lot of the AI data center names have bounced back. Let's see what happens after earnings tomorrow on NVIDIA. Finally, Bitcoin, the 11th holding that's either an ETF or a stock in GROTECTION. Here's the next 10. Zscaler has earnings this week. We'll be keeping an eye on that. Beautiful rider of the 8-day moving average. Carvana, nice and tight, tried to move out today, closed at the top of the range. Volume wasn't there, however. Looks like it's right at the pivot. A lot of these strong names had strong moves up, completing the right side of their base, and they're just working off that quick move up and putting in some sideways action, and Carvana is one of them. Chewy continues to rock. Duolingo, strong move up, gap up on earnings, also working that off a little bit, holding right near the 8-day moving average. Love how it's just going sideways after that big move up, on just going sideways on a relative basis. Boeing continues to put in about a 2-week flag here after its nice move up on earnings. Toast, time for this to get back in gear after 4 or 5 days up with big volume after its earnings report. 6 days down, below average volume, just what you want to see. got back above the 8-day moving average today intraday, but closed right back below it. We want to see this get up and out of here off back above the 8-day moving average. CoreWeave continues to be just amazing. Every bull phase has stocks like this. This is the anointed one. Played a little bit of possum after earnings before nearly doubling over the past week and a half. Just an amazing run that we did not participate in. But there you have it. App Lovin, nice day today. This is what you like to see after this little flag gets put in after a move up on earnings. Break above. Look at how light the volume was during the flag, breaking above the flag, below average volume today, but higher volume relative to the flag. NRG continues to consolidate after its earnings gap higher on lighter volume. And then the new name, an energy name. We didn't have any oil and gas names in here. We like to have diversification among sectors in here. This one just going for the past 2 months sideways on a relative basis while it forms this nice flat base and then getting even tighter here right near the pivot on EQT. There's a couple of good oil names. This is one of our top ones. So added to the 21 over 21 list, and that's the list that will be used for calculating our end of day stats and our leader behavior over the next week. And that's going to wrap it. As always, like to hear from you. The email's don@revereasset.com. The phone's 855 Real Wealth. That's 855 732 5932. Website, revereasset.com. YouTube, please like and subscribe. Let's take a look very quickly at TEM, which was added to TurboTection today. You can see breaking the downtrend line on some nice volume, squatted a little bit intraday, but good volume up 5.3%. They had some some positive news coverage on a product that they use as part of their AI in the healthcare field. They're pretty unique there from that standpoint. So just missing the 21 over 21 list, I easily could have put this in here. Maybe we need a separate list for things that are growthier. Well, I'm not going to get ahead of myself. We got enough lists. Let's wrap it. Reminder, our flagship portfolio named GROTECTION, guaranteed. There are no guarantees in the market, but it is designed to grow your balance during uptrends, protect it during downtrends. Most transparent advisor in the world. We detail what we do every night on video, what trades we make, why they're making them, what our outlook for the market is, what the keys are for the next day, news. We make a video that if we were watching a video contains everything that we would want to know as a summary for the day and prep for the next day. And we put our best foot forward with these videos, and we would appreciate you liking and subscribing them to them, and comment if you wish. We usually address all the comments in YouTube. And for whoever continues to click unlike without saying why they're unliking it, you're a coward. And with that, I'll wrap it for Tuesday, May 27th. This is Don Vandenbord with Revere Asset Management, telling it like it is. Thanks for listening and have a great day.